Welcome, everybody, to the last meeting of the year, the finance meeting for December. So I want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas. So first up is call to order and approval of the agenda. Moved by Ms. Kerwin, second by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes for November 28th, made by Ms. Curran, second by Forsythe. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First up is our first resolution with Mr. Bruce Green, real property. That resolution is correcting and refunding erroneous taxes. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Ms. Perkins. Mr. Green.
This first resolution tonight is just an annual resolution where we ask to allow for correcting and refunding of erroneous taxes for less than $2,500. In that case, these are done between our office and treasurer's office.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Green concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Green. Next up, we have our. Oh, okay. Mrs. Doyle reminds me to tell you that we have two legislators that are absent, Mr. Burke and Mr. Burke. Next up, we have our highway intendant, Mr. Don Chambers. The first resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for the Department of Highways for machinery rental expenses, moved by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Mr. Forsythe. Chambers.
Thank you. This resolution modifies the 2022 budget in the Department of Highways, moving funds from one part of the rental area into the traffic division. Basically, internal charges that we charge equipment to projects for maintenance operations within the department to then feed back into the shipper. So it's all within the department budget, putting it from one account to the other, just balancing out for the end of the year.
Any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Our next resolution is approving the purchase of lawnmowers for the highway outposts in Potsdam and Lisbon and modifying the 2023 budget for the Department of Highways, moved by Mr. Forsythe, second by Mr. Diacro. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you. As Mr. Akers says, this resolution modifies the 2023 budget, allowing for the purchase of some zero-turn mowers for the two new outposts that we are constructing. This is within the capital account. So the plan would be to have one station at each location.
Okay, Mr. Forsythe has a question.
Where are you getting zero turns this year?
We are actually also trading in an older lawn tractor.
Okay.
And these are off state. 54-inch zero turn mowers from Casanova.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, the next resolution is a resolution for the use of county open machinery. Moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Ms. Fiacco. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, this resolution allows the use of county equipment and to be basically for shared services within the county to other municipalities. Without this, our cooperation with the towns would not be able to. Best interest of the county and the towns and taxpayers as a whole work together, sharing manpower and equipment.
Questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chambers, if you'll give us an update on the Potsdam Outpost project, please.
Yes, absolutely. Sheet rock is going up in the inside of the facility. Still waiting for National Grid to put the transformer in so we can get our heat, so we can do the mudding and painting and taping that we need to do on the sheet rock. The salt storage facility, it has been completed, and we are storing both sand salt mixture and salt in that facility right now. So hopefully we are in that within the next month or two, that will be operational out of the hot state facility. We are operational out of Lisbon. We are operational out of Russell, and has greatly diminished the traffic and materials here in the village.
Mr. Forsyth.
I've got a couple of guys that drive truck for you, and they really appreciate outputs too. Getting into a nice warm truck in the morning and all the other that goes along with it. Not so long a ride. And work, but
Absolutely.
And I understand we have to call over, get Mr. Button up now because the backup line, they're waking him up. Can we turn it? Yes, wake up call. Mr. Lightfoot.
We'll work on that.
Are you done, Mr. Chambers? All right, do you have anything more? I don't want to be interrupting you. Well, what I wanted to do was to advise you that your actions a couple of days ago with regard to that fire in the Morristown Fire Department or the Briar Hill Fire Department, sort of used by both, down in Briar Hill, destroyed one of their plows and did extensive damage to the Highway Department garage. And it wasn't an hour after I got notified of it that Don Chambers was on the phone or on the radio with one or the other, volunteering St. Lawrence County's equipment as needed, and offered the use of a couple of plow trucks to help the town of Morristown out. This is not the first time that you've done that, reached out to departments that are experiencing difficulties. Hopkinton is another perfect example of that, but it really shows the kind of guy you're made of. And I appreciate it. The people in Morristown appreciate it. And I think you're doing a hell of a job.
Yeah. And if I can, that resolution that we just passed about sharing equipment and manpower, that's what.
Is that it?
Allow it to happen.
by the way,
So appreciate the latitude that this board provides the departments to work with the municipalities.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. We'll move on to solid waste, also with Mr. Chambers. First resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for solid waste for tipping fee expenses. Moved by Ms. Yaco, second by Ms. Curran. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, this resolution modifies the solid waste budget. I think all the legislators here are aware that this is a enterprise fund. It must provide its own, pay its own way. So in this resolution, the first two lines increase the revenue from tipping fees that we receive for solid waste and then for recycling. Decreasing appropriations within the budget and other areas where we are coming under for this year, and then increasing the appropriations to pay for the associated tip fees for that increased volume. So again, keeping that within the budget. We have why there's the tipping fees don't balance. Just to anticipate that question, we have taken additional revenues to pay for other things such as fuel and in past resolutions because our repairs and that's why we had to move funds from other areas in the tipping fees don't balance.
Any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. An update on the recycling center in Lisbon.
Yes, the facility has gone along quite well. Some of the flooring has been poured in the transfer building itself. Within the first week or two of January, planning on transferring the scales and compactor to the Lisbon location. However, the coverall building that goes up, the foundations are all there. That material isn't scheduled until, into March, so February, end of February, beginning of March. So we're likely only one, the first quarter will not be operational with the compactor until we're covered and ready to go. But so we will be hauling material roughly to Recycle America, owned by Waste Management in Liverpool, beginning January 3rd. Dank will be closing their facility on December 30th of this month. So, making that transition. Was authorized.
Any questions about recycling? Okay, guess we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Thank you.
Next up for treasurer, we have Renee Cole. The first resolution is authorizing the blanket bond in lieu of individual sureties for county officials and employees. Moved by Mr. Denisha, second by Mr. Smithers. Renee, Mrs. Cole.
Thank you. So this is an annual resolution that we bring you every year. There's been no changes to this since last January. So this is in preparation for 2023.
Okay, Mr. Lightfoot.
So move.
Second. Okay, we never.
Has it already been second?
We already had that.
Forgive me.
Okay. Yes, we are. My last meeting, you throw it out.
I tried.
Okay. Any questions for our county treasurer concerning the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is bank depositories and investment of general funds, moved by Mr. Denisha, second by Ms. Kernan. Mrs. Cole.
Thank you. This is another annual resolution. There are no changes to this as it stands since October, when we modified this resolution with resolution 350-2022. We made some changes. We added a depository and some language. I think some limit amounts to that in October. So there's no changes to this going forward for next year.
Okay, any questions for our county treasurer? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is authorizing petty cash accounts in departmental cash drawers. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Perkins. Mrs. Cole.
Thanks again. So this is our last, this is another annual resolution. This establishes the amounts of petty cash and the amount of cash kept in the departmental cash drawers. One small change actually affected both columns. Our social services department, when we adopted this resolution in January, it had $1,700 in the petty cash account. We've actually made a correction or a reclassification of $200 of that and moved it into the departmental cash drawers, as they keep a $200 cash drawer to make change for people that come in to make miscellaneous payments. So that's it for changes.
Okay. Any questions about the resolutions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Next up, our county attorney, Stephen Button. And the first resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Odin Environmental for environmental investigation on property owned by the Reddick Irrevocable Trust, Eleanor R. Millette, Scott T. Berry, Doris E. Miller, Bradley L. Finley Jr. Is moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Perkins. Mr. Button.
Thank you. I wanted to take my time and walk up here, recognizing that this is the last of any meeting in which you will serve as chair. So I didn't want to have the moment fly by me too quickly.
Thank you.
I think all the board is completely aware of all the strides we've made over the course of the last few years with respect to targeting properties that we believe are A, tax delinquent, and B, potentially contaminated. Unfortunately, sometimes properties come before us where we have anecdotal history that we believe that property is in fact contaminated, but we have to take the steps to investigate it thoroughly. The 5 properties that you have before you, one is in Pitcairn, one is in Governor, 2 are in the town of Potsdam, and 1 is in the town of Fine. are properties where we anecdotally have information that suggests that there may be a history consistent with a contaminated use, but we don't have sufficient information yet to justify moving forward to a phase 2. You're all familiar with the phase 2s. That's where we actually go in and drop soil borings into the ground so that we can check the actual core samples to see if there is any petroleum-based contamination in the soil. So the resolution before you would authorize us to contract with Open Environment to perform those phase 1 historical analyses on those various properties so that we can decide whether or not we need to move forward with phase 2.
Okay, any questions for our county attorney? No, Dave? I thought you had
No,
your
I
hand.
have to respond.
I thought your-
No, I'm waiting.
thought your hand was part way up.
Yeah.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Mr. Martin. Oh, you do have a question?
Yeah, it wasn't in relation.
Okay, go ahead.
The other day at my town board meeting in Lisbon, Sealand came up.
Yes.
Issue with Sealand. Are you familiar with any update on it?
Not an update, although I have been contacted about
Okay.
Sealand fairly recently.
Okay,
But I can speak to Sealand, at least the history of the property if you'd like.
yeah, because there's some concern and some things that they thought were done apparently weren't.
So if I can, jog everyone's memory, Sealand Restoration was a property located in Lisbon that had historical metals and petroleum-based contamination. This became actually a targeted Superfund site, and the federal government through the EPA, as well as the Department of Environmental Conservation, was engaged in assisting us in targeting that property. In fact, it sat dormant for quite some time, both through actions going on in the federal government and actions going on in federal court with bankruptcy proceedings. When we were able to finally target it, there were a couple of things that took place. One, the DEC actually did go in and take care of some of the remediation of the property, but they did not take care of the rare earth metals that were in the higher levels of the soil. The remedy that the state performed on the property, though, satisfied the level that the EPA was willing to grant approval for acquisition and conveyance. The county went forward, foreclosed on the property, put it up for auction after having the signed release from the EPA and from the DEC, with the full knowledge that there would be restrictive covenants associated with the land. That one of those primary restrictive covenants being that you had to import potable water. You could not actually utilize water from a well source on Sealand Restoration. They had specifically identified for us that your target purchaser at auction would actually be someone who wanted to use the above ground resources of the land, namely hunting. So when that property actually went up for auction, that is who was primarily solicited to bid on the property. Individuals that would utilize the property without the need to place a permanent structure there, or without any real permanent need for well source water or septic. And it's my understanding at the auction, that's in fact who ended up purchasing it. I don't recall the name of the gentleman that purchased it, but my recollection was the stated purpose for utilization of the land was for hunting purposes. So that's the history behind Sealand Restoration. That occurred roughly 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyd.
So what I heard the other night is there's some individuals interested in buying it, some just expand their boundaries and things, but I believe it was some Amish interested in buying it. And that's what I was recalling. I don't think, actually the neighbors got delivered water for the longest time in Tuck Road and on the backside of that. I just wondered what happened to that status.
There's no prohibited covenant on sale. The acquisition was owned by an individual who was not a contaminator as defined under the navigation law. Was an individual that was not viewed in any other state other than being bona fide value without notice of any of the prior contamination events. So from that standpoint, the release that we acquired from both the DEC and the EPA was conveyed on to our successors and interest. If they wish to convey it to the Amish, they could. If they wish to convey it on to some other purchaser, they absolutely could, but subject to those lifelong covenants that are placed on that property.
Very good. Yep.
Is it the new owner kind of?
I don't recall what the name of the gentleman was.
He owns like 100.
I think the
But it's
overall,
for farmland.
Moderate or something from Governor or something.
I thought the overall acreage was around 160 acres, and my recollection was that the individual that acquired it was not intending to farm it. Once again, with the potable water issues, irrigation would pose a problem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Button. Next up, we have for information technology, Mr. Rick Johnson. Who is? We have stand-in Rodney. Okay. And the first resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a customer agreement with SADA Systems, SADA Systems, Inc. for the acquisition of Google Workspace licenses. Moved by Mr. Smithers, second by Ms. Curran.
This resolution that is in front of you is to purchase Google Workspace licenses through SADA. This will allow IT to keep their existing content that lives in Google Workspace, as well as further develop the potential value that Workspace.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson stand-in? It's his first time here. We should give him a tough time. Mr. Burkett.
Were there any other considerations besides Google? We are looking into Office 365. And that will be an initiative for 20. No other cloud services? The only two that are major players is Google Workspace and Office. Barracuda isn't one of those players? Barracuda? Yep. Apparently not. No.
It's bad.
Okay.
It's bad.
We use them for archiving, but not major player in the internet. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Lightfoot? There we go.
Office 365 is rather new, is it not?
Yeah.
So usually with these new the birth of some of these new programs, invariably they have issues with them. And I know that I got a pop-up on my screen today wanting me to switch over to it, and I'm reluctant to. But has there any drawbacks associated with this that have been identified so far? You know, prior to this big announcement has already been had, but
Drawbacks.
well, drawbacks with the workings of the software.
Are there drawbacks to software?
Yeah, I don't have anything specific. I'm just asking in general, is it, does it have, little things that go wrong with it, for lack of a better term of trying to describe it? I mean, a lot of this stuff that comes out new is rush out the door. And then all of a sudden, we get a bunch of fixes and adjustments and, to fix it. Anything like that with this that we've got to worry about?
Are there things that with these type of services that you need to fix? Yes, I think along with other stuff such as firewalls or any other hardware software that we have. That's why we work really hard to just stay on top of updates, firmware, things that come up. Whether there's some sort of vulnerability somewhere, we get eyes and are alerted. Those types of things.
Okay, so if I may. So the general public is not usually privy to everything that goes wrong with software until they're told, oh, you got a problem and here's a fix. Is there problems with it to the extent that it could interfere with the workings of a home computer with the home program as opposed to whatever program the county would get?
If I'm understanding the question, the issue.
Is there any issues common to both? Common to the county program, county to the individual user program?
I would say that they're common in terms of vulnerability. If you have vulnerability here in the county, it's gonna be the same.
Okay.
If I could speak to this, so part of what IT's been recommending this year was a complete move for all departments over to the Google platform. And in looking at each different department's needs and uses, there's a step back at this point from IT to take a more careful look at and only secure a few licenses. So they have been doing exactly as you described, playing around in Google, having different employees try and make use of it, run into where the challenges are and understand, is that going to be a fit for us? You'll remember in budget, we talked about having to update, or I'm sure there's a more technical term, replace our email server because the current one we use is going out of support. So we'll be doing that anyway. And so we thought, let's look at this to see, is Google Workspace something a lot of organizations, a lot of school districts use it? Does this make sense for the county? We can't answer that question yet. So they wanted to get a limited number of licenses so they can say, here's some different user groups who have different functions. Essentially, we're 24 different businesses. And let's figure out if it's a good option, or if we should say to Google, no thanks, not going to be a fit for the county. And this is a one-year commitment.
Thank you.
So, any more questions? Cisneros? Cisneros.
There is nothing I have not heard yet, so.
Cisneros, okay. Any more questions for Rodney? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign an agreement with Slick Network Solutions, Inc. for installation and support services of a communications line for the Department of Social Services Satellite Office in C. Moved by Mr. Lightfoot, second by Mr. Smithers and Mr. Hill.
This resolution is an agreement to have Slick Network Solutions install their services at the 280 Main Street.
Any questions concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Done. Okay, next up is a resolution that I have concerning soil and water. And it reads as follows: opposing any alterations to New York State law that would change the mission and function of soil and water districts without input from the County Board of Legislators, Supervisors, and New York Farm Bureau, New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, and a four-way partnership with the Soil and Water District System. That includes the National Resource Conservation Service, New York Association of Conservation Districts, the State Committee, and the Employees Associations. Moved by Mr. Denisha, second by Ms. Curran. So what has been happening is there's been a somewhat underground movement by this group calling itself the New York State Watershed Health Coalition, which wants to interfere with the good work that our soil and water districts are doing. Something that we support to the tune of $40,000 a year, I believe, and that also that the leader actually runs our Snowmobile Trail Association reimbursement, all that stuff. What they want to do is expand the membership from the board from 5 to 7. They want to eliminate, there's what's mandated now on these soil and water district boards. You have to have 2 legislators. You have to have a member of the Farm Bureau. You also have to have a Grange representative. Grange is a group that's declining in membership, but there's always one. This proposal by New York State Watershed Health Coalition, which has been the undercurrent, has not been published. We discovered it. They want to remove the Farm Bureau member. They want to remove the Grange member, replace that with a NOFA, which is a National Association of Organic Professional Organization. It's an organic group, but they also want to merge our soil and water with other soil and water districts, more like a watershed. So we could be mixed in with Franklin County, Lewis County, or whatever they need. And what they've actually produced is a document. The list here is 35 pages. I think it's 80 some. That making changes in the law for us for legislators to for them to sponsor. Right now, there isn't a sponsor either on the Senate or the Assembly, but we fear that it is coming. It's an underhanded approach. It would minimize this legislative body's approval, that you would be asked to fund it. Also within the document is a tax that would be placed on fertilizer for farmers to purchase. And I think it would be a tremendous oversight of the programs that we issue now as far as mineral management, water quality that we're doing in this organization. Our Soil and Water does millions of dollars business with farmers about water controlling pollution, containing manure and water quality. And it would impact their work. So I would urge all of you to support this resolution. If you have any questions, I would like to. Ms. Curran.
I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to your resolution. I think it sounds like you're headed towards the overreach, which is much like the DEC does, overreach into other people's stuff.
Anyone else? Mr. Denisha.
I think, Mr. Chairman, as the board rep to the Environmental Protection Board, I would also like to be added to this resolution. If this legislation is passed, it would significantly limit any say we would have on the local level.
As mentioned, the 2-member board of legislators mandated to this board would be also be eliminated, and it would be open to a public vote. So anybody from any organization or not even an organization at all would be eligible to vote, rather than you would not have 2 legislative representatives on the funding that you're providing to this soil and water. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you for your support. Next up is our vacancy review committee, starting with Boyle.
Co-starring, and we have one department head to present 2 departments. I would ask the committee's indulgence between the highway positions being requested and solid waste, because they both fall to our superintendent. For an explanation of an anticipated challenge we have in 2023. The first vacancy up for consideration is a fill of 1 heavy equipment operator.
Thank you. Yes, this position is to fill a vacant heavy equipment operator position. The former employee then went to take employment with a town for their employment at this point. So heavy equipment operator operates for more complex equipment, as well as providing services for snow plowing. Very important member of our team. They have equipment. Specialized with excavators.
Mr. Forsyth.
Now, how far off are we with the salary? It's 48 grand. Is it quite a difference?
Depends on what
Maybe closer.
Yeah. This individual. It was in his town. So Bill. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go on to the next one.
Thank you. Yes, the next one is for a motor equipment operator with this looking to abolish the sign maintenance worker position, which is a pay grade 18, and create a motor equipment operator position, which is also a pay grade 18. In the past, when we've tried to fill this position, which is basically only able to be filled internally, meet the flaws of the sign maintenance worker. We had to modify it the last time because we were not getting applications that would fill the qualifications from outside. Whereas a motor equipment operator, we are much more likely to be able to fill the position than we would be with assigning the motor equipment operator to the sign maintenance under other duties as required. By that position.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Okay, before we move on, wanted Don to have the opportunity to speak to a challenge we may be facing in 23 related to the highway maintenance shop.
So, as of late, we have had multiple, unfortunately, multiple openings in our shop, mechanic helpers and mechanics. We had basically retirement here just recently, and likely to have another retirement within the next few weeks of a motor equipment mechanic slash HEO. And we just had one of the helpers, mechanic helpers that we just promoted to mechanic, ended up going to work for a local car dealership for considerably more money. We also have a individual that's out on mechanic that's out on comp, which so with that amount of movement within the team, also could lead to other individuals deciding to move to different positions because of a dramatic shift. Just to make you aware, the mechanic staff maintains all the vehicles within the department, including the sheriff's department, highway, all ways. So if we are to not to be able to get mechanics on staff, likely need to contract out items, which may lead to union issues with our operation. And also cost is a outside labor cost to work on heavy equipment. It's considerably more than what the cost would be within the department. And also relocating, say, a heavy piece of equipment, possibly to Watertown or Syracuse, be worked on. So we have the transportation costs associated with that, as well as the cost. On the other side, we provide these services to the other departments, solid waste, sheriffs, and all the other internal departments, which provides a revenue to the department. So likely to see an increase in cost and a decrease in revenue, which will certainly make an imbalance within the department. Kind of a critical item that brought to the attention of to the county administrator, which asked that I discuss that with you.
Mr. Forsyth.
Yeah, I brought that up before. I'd see the salary and I know what it costs. And these mechanics, even a mobile guy on the site, astronomical sometimes. Now, we showed an example earlier where he worked with the town of Morristown on their problem. What about reaching out to the towns? And they must all have mechanics on staff of some sort or do extravagant.
I want to say that they have, a lot of times, depends on the size of the town.
Yeah.
A lot of the smaller towns, their equipment operators do mechanic. And ship out things that you can.
Sure.
The equipment's become more and more technically advanced. Everything requires a laptop to plug into. Quite frankly, a lot of our maintenance issues on the heavy equipment come down to computer emissions. That's a lot of our time is dealing with the electronics.
Yeah, I can see that's gonna be a long-standing issue, sure.
Just minutes.
What grade level is this position in particular that you're referencing?
I believe that's a pay grade 23. The mechanic helper is a pay grade 20, and I believe the mechanic is a 20.
Mr. Manelli.
John, what are the educational and background requirements for these positions?
Well, they would have to have at least a high school diploma. And we have now relaxed the qualifications to allow them 1 year to get a CDL Class A. Because now we do have our in-house training. I've worked with the county administrator and HR to make that adjustment. It's still having difficulties retaining and recruiting, especially on the heavy duty side. That's the demand and very high paid. So it needs a lot of technical know-how as far as the operating various scan tools, laptops that go along.
I guess I'm asking, I think we've had this conversation on this floor before. We've got 4 colleges right around here. And City of Canton has an automotive technical program. I'm wondering, if there's a possibility down the road to partner with them, where they could do placements, and then we could, kind of a recruiting kind of a system and keep people local. I don't know if it's something we could consider, but there's gotta be some kind of marriage maybe that could happen there. That could benefit both.
Yes, certainly we do reach out to them through the handshake program. And Johnny could probably speak to that as well, but the college is aware that, we have vacancies. Again, though, their program is in the automotive and not in the heavy duty. So more or less car, pickup, truck, not bulldozer, excavator. Tractor trailer type. Oh, okay, it was my, Ruth has corrected me on the mechanics paper training. Sorry. Misspoke.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the solid waste.
Thank you. Yes, with the expansion of the recycling responsibilities within the solid waste department, the heavy equipment operator was included in the 2023 budget. Looking for utilization ties to hire a heavy equipment operator in the solid waste department. That position would operate the scales to the material handler within facility to driving a tractor trailer. A variety of activities that person would do. That's with the increased duties that we are picking up with taking over the recycling operations and transferring material a much further distance rather than Harrisville. You're going all the way to Liverpool. We most definitely need another equipment operator. We will be on the average 6 loads per week to go to Syracuse. So more than a full-time job on average going to Syracuse. There will be a tractor trailer coming from St. Lawrence County. Sometimes 2 a day, but at least every day. Rather long day. 30 days just. That's why I proposed having additional.
And this position, as a reminder, is included in the budget, which also is a reminder, this is the enterprise fund. There is no cost to taxpayers who don't use the facilities. Any other questions on vacancy? Okay, thank you, Don. And just to follow back on that grade 24, that salary range for this year was 48.4 to 58.7.
Okay, we'll move on to report on the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
So we have signed our contract and have work commencing on our tree removal for the Emerald Ash Borer as well as the hazard trees. The committee has completed their work on the airboat. I believe any of the committee members that want to speak on it are certainly welcome. A recommendation has been returned to the county, and we are about, at this time, about 150,000 shy of what the cost currently is. And so we're looking at what options we may have, looking at both ARPA funds as well as other potential funds that could offset that total cost. So we can bring that to you as the recommendation. You've approved the vest to be purchased for probation. That has been complete. We have pretty soon here, I believe in the next week, our first candidate with the EMT training will complete her work. And we are trying to get the word out, which we will continue to do, to get new folks enrolled for the next term, the next semester, if as it were, to become paramedic or EMT, ALS or BLS trained. At the December board meeting, you approved the radio project for emergency services. That resolution will come up before you next. But before we get to that, we would hope that those funds will be used first. As you heard from our emergency services director, we are looking at a portion of the $6 million grant, very small part of that. That grant's mainly for the tower projects. So we'd like to use the $5 million here. You've authorized us to move forward with the lease for the balance of the 12.15 total project cost. I don't believe this project can move along at the pace that it is without the ARPA fund. So the group is certainly grateful for that project moving forward. And tonight we have with us Patrick Kelly from the IDA, who's going to come up and speak about the small business projects, of which you started to see some of those move forward. You should have a handout on your desks that will walk through and answer any questions that you have. Patrick?
Good evening. You may recall in August, you approved a certain amount of funding for ARPA administration through the IDA. We had provided to you a program guideline, a set of categories and funding allocations that we were going to propose that we would undertake on your behalf if approved. Since then, we have created the applications. We have created a website landing page with guidelines with further information. We've been accepting applications. We have set up 3 separate rounds of deadlines, primarily because we wanted to make sure that we had full awareness throughout the county. Didn't want to get an initial batch, spend all the money, and then have people not be aware, or businesses or nonprofits not be aware. We've sent out a series of press releases. We've done some social media promotion. We're going to be doing some advertising as well. I will walk you through these 5 pages. The small business and nonprofit assistance program, again, within the ARPA guidelines, you have to show impact. There are numerous ways that impact can be demonstrated. Our application process walks the applicant through the various ways they can demonstrate impact and then how they can document it. To date, across the 3 rounds, we have made 17 awards totaling $50,000. So that is approximately $3,000 per award. That category had $300,000 budgeted, so there is a remaining balance of $250,000. By way of reminder, the money has to be allocated by the end of 2024, spent by 2026. The next category is facility and infrastructure improvement funds. Within the guidelines, there are different eligible use categories for investments businesses or eligible applicants can make in their facilities. We have approved 9 of these awards, averaging about $22,000. We allocated $1 million for this category. So the total amount awarded is $198,000 with approximately $800,000. Again, our plan is to promote this. We're having a conversation with those. I think the pace of awards is pretty good in terms of where we are with how much funding is left and how much time is left. The tourism, travel, and hospitality city building grant program. Travel, tourism, and hospitality have what I would call special treatment within the guidelines, within the ARPA final guidelines. They are essentially a preordained impacted sector. So there was a fair amount of focus and direction within the guidelines. for Tourism, travel, and hospitality. We put two different categories together, one for capacity building, it's 350,000. We have made 8 awards in that category, averaging about $35,000. There's a remaining balance of 70,000 in that category. And then tourism, travel, and hospitality promotion, 50,000 was set aside for promoting the Messina and Ogdensburg airports. If you take that 50,000 out, we've allocated an additional 49,500 across 7 awards, so they're averaging about 7,000.
Go ahead.
Mr. Kelly, in regards to the top of the page, there, the Black Lake Association and their battle with milfoil and water chestnuts. We've had requested of us additional places, particularly Sylvia Lake, and we've discussed this before. There's various waters that have similar problems, and I'm just curious if there's any other lakes or water areas that have applied for funding also in addition to Black Lake.
Not yet. And I will point out, I'd be remiss if I did not say we are partnering with the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce on the 2 tourism programs. So the process is you go to our website for the application, they are initially submitted to the chamber, they undergo a review process before they come to us, and then we have the IDA final review. And it's been outstanding work. Certainly it's helped broaden our ability to be responsive across all the different programs. And within so the balance remaining is approximately 110,000 in the tourism promotion. A lot of talk about workforce tonight already. There's a lot of talk about workforce everywhere you go. We allocated $900,000 for workforce training and development. In addition to the new worker and existing worker programs that are listed, there's 150,000 that is allocated, ironically, for heavy equipment operator training, which we're working with the BOCES, Southwest Tech on creating and implementing that program. 125,000 for healthcare and 25,000 for workforce pipeline development, making the connection stronger between the BOCES, the SUNY Canton, and the schools, the other workforce development institute, the various partners that are out there. When you remove those categories, that's 300,000. That leaves 600,000 for worker training. We have allocated approximately 211,000, including some CDLA awards, childcare funding, where we believe we are with the cost of that program, and a number of different new worker training awards. And I think we have funding in that category that we intentionally made that a larger category. And I think we're going to continue to have need as we get into next year. Whether it's specific for something like heavy equipment operator or just existing new worker, need does not go away. I believe all in, we've allocated somewhere over 700,000 money that was entrusted to us. The 2.9 does not include the childcare, CDL. We set those up as separate categories. We are looking at them right now. There are 5 individuals, approximately 60 have been through that program. There are 2 cohorts, one of childcare, family daycare trainees of about 10 right now, and another one of about 10 set up to get into the next month.
Okay, any questions? Ms. Terminelli?
Patrick, thank you for all of your work on this, and this is, I love the presentation, it's so transparent and nice to see where the money is being allocated to, it's something not where we can visually see how widespread it is across the county. How does the disbursement of the funds go for this? Is it a reimbursement? Do they get the funding up front? Is it different from application to application?
Yes, the final one. So what we have tried to do is we've tried to endeavor to get the money out. You know, it's meant to address issues left over from the pandemic, so getting it out there with some efficiency, I think is our goal. The small business and nonprofit, once we have the application, once it's approved, we have an agreement we've created that they then enter into with us, and then they're ready to be paid. And I will tell you, take heart in the value of this program you created. Because in particular, with some of these smaller allocations, $2,500, I'm here sometimes to issue $80 million bonds. The response has been overwhelming, the gratitude, the appreciation. We are taking most of the credit. We are trying to make sure that the story is told. The narrative is, you had a lot of different things you could do with this money. And the fact that you allocated $3.5 million to economic development, training, workforce development, certainly it's appreciated. On behalf of the recipients, I can tell you, it has been it's been a lot of work, but it has been a very enjoyable program to administer. Allocating money. As the funding sources diminish and the need remains, some of the funds will be drained away, I'm sure. But in the meantime, the goal, depending on the program, if it's some of the facility and infrastructure programs, we're having numerous conversations with the applicants. Almost everybody applies for the maximum. Almost nobody has gotten the maximum, and that has been based on. And we modeled this after the River Valley. Dave knows what I'm talking about. Where you call and say, okay, well, what can still help? And overwhelmingly, the applicants have been, we explained to them there's a limited amount of money. We're trying to spread it out as much as we can. Would it still help if we purchase this as part of your application, this piece of equipment, or funded, this specific initiative? And the applicants have been flexible. They've been agreeable. They've worked with us. It's been a great, in my estimation, it's been a really great process to try and get as many of the programs moving as possible. I'd also be remiss, the map was Jim's idea. The smiley faces were my idea, but the map was Jim's. Yeah. I'll try and tell you so he doesn't.
Thank you.
And Mr. Denisha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think this is very fine. With the $3.5 million for economic development, we're $5 million of the ARPA funding for our radio system. Back in April, when we first were talking about what we were going to do with all the ARPA funds. I publicly stated that it was my belief that the ARPA funding was better spent across the county on projects that were going to affect the greatest number of people. I am totally convinced that the way we are doing it is achieving that goal.
Yeah, and I will tell you, some of the, we've done press releases, we've done advertisements, we're out calling. The recommendations and referrals from this body have been probably the primary source of referrals. So as you're talking with your businesses, please keep it in mind, keep sending them to us. Not, like I said, not everybody's getting everything they want, but very few people are walking with the process upset.
Any other questions for Patrick right now? Okay.
Thank you again. And thanks, you're just getting the accolades, I guess. I know Kevin was very active on the committee that we did. That's what's good. Thank you for working with us and entrusting us with the process. Yeah, great.
I'm glad you're dealing with the minutia because it has to be difficult. All these little projects. a lot of details, a lot of conversations, phone calls, following up. So
Everyone's
great work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And tomorrow, the ARPA committee will meet for the last time this year at 3:30. So if we can offer a Zoom option or in person. We'll go over much of what Patrick said, but also have a few other updates. We'll get some details on the utility, water and sewer project proposals and what will be put forward for recommendations.
That's Jim Reagan, Dan Fay. Margaret, are you sitting in for Tony? Have we received it?
so. Yeah, she's.
You are.
Tony Day.
Tony may also. So
Okay.
3:30 tomorrow.
Okay. And then the last.
Right here, correct?
Yeah, here or Zoom. And then we have the resolutions.
Okay, the resolution is modifying the 2023 budget of Motorola Solutions, Inc. For the purchase of public safety communications equipment, software, and applicable maintenance services, moved by Mr. Denisha, second by Mr. Curran, Mr. Lightfoot, and Mr. Fay.
So this resolution, I think, expands upon the presentation you saw with Motorola here. On the substance of it, these funds were intended, as Legislator Denisha, I think eloquently put it, to go as far and as wide as they could across the county. And we believe that this will be accomplished using these funds for this purpose.
Any questions concerning the resolution? Or of your towns with any new equipment, your emergency services, your fire departments? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And that will move on to the county administrator's report. That is, starting with Doyle.
It is, and I, like our superintendent of highways and our treasurer, have some annual resolutions to present to you this evening. The first of which is the adoption of our rules of procedure. And I will summarize for you. There are very few.
To get a motion. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers and Mr.
So there are 4 pages of your rules with changes requested. We took the opportunity with the board's passage and adoption of the local law this year for attendance in other locations besides present. To include that language, the county attorneys reviewed it in accordance with our local law, both for committee participation as well as for board meetings. So that has been included on page 1. Also, just some formative changes. We struck on page 4, forestry from the reports that you receive on finance committee. Many years ago, we had a forestry department, and as long as I've been here, we have contracted for the service through soil and water. So that is sort of a duplication there. We're just cleaning that up. We'll continue with the contract. Soil and water would be the ones to present. So that's been stricken. Also, at the top of the next page, just change in language to be in accordance with the meeting schedule rather than as indicated on. So minor. Also then in meetings, we have the same that we had in committees for board meetings on the next page. And that concludes the changes to the articles. We also were requested to prepare 2 draft schedules for our meeting calendar, which were included. Draft 1 is prepared with every Monday separate for committees, with the exception of months where we have holidays. So that limits how many Mondays we have available to meet. Draft 2 schedule was prepared under the combination of meetings where possible, and in the formative way that we used to. We have adopted both the pre-committee and the submission dates in keeping with those schedules. So that will be for the board to determine how they would like to proceed. Questions?
No questions concerning the combination of meetings?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Curran, I'll leave
Or
you
the
first.
rules. Are you the rules?
Microphone, please.
I apologize. So we talked a long time ago about how we think we lose when we double up operation services together. You know, it can go on for hours. I think we've been here as late as 11:30. I don't think we're as clear at 9, 10 o'clock at night. People are just rushing to get through things. Some of the stuff really deserves to be discussed, looked into, maybe tabled, go back, look at other stuff. I think if we are really doing the people's work, we do one operations meeting, one services meeting, one finance meeting. Otherwise, why have any of them all? I just chat about it on text. Weekly meetings.
So are you making an amendment to which draft you would like?
I would prefer draft one, attachment A.
So attachment A, we have a motion amendment. Is there a second to this amendment? Mr. Lightfoot. Seconds to the amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Mr. Lightfoot.
To take one of the schedules.
Ms. Curran, turn off your mic, Mr. Lightfoot.
Ms. Curran is correct. The number of times that we've sat in here till 10, 11 o'clock at night are the times that we've made poor decisions or the opportunity to make poor decisions exist. You're not as sharp as you were at 5:30 in the afternoon when the meeting started. I think that we ought to avoid any of those circumstances that would lend itself to making poor decisions. I think too that we're in a big hurry at 11 o'clock night to get the heck out of here and not have to stay any longer. You know, a couple of hours in a meeting sort of exhausts your ability to stay focused on what you're doing. And to stay for a later hour, I don't think it's a wise idea. And so I will be voting for the amendment.
Foresight. Wait, excuse me. Mrs. Haggard, you had your hand up.
I did.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Forsythe.
I agree. When I signed up for this years ago, I figured it was 4 Mondays a month, you know, and you're right. There's sometimes you're in and out in a half hour to an hour, but there's other nights at 5, 6 hours. It's just way too long. It's way too long. I'm missing my grandson's basketball game right now as we speak, so, you know, I chose this. And I plan on representing people the best I can, so I say stay with it.
Anyone else? Mr. Denisha.
Sure. Yeah, I support the
Draft one.
the draft one as well. And as recently as last week, you know, we had a combination services and operations committee. And we had some important information that was to be presented to us at the end. But everyone was in a hurry to get out of here. The person that was presenting the information, I've been in those situations. You know, who had no attention of the group. I think we felt that it was just going through the motions. And I've seen times when we've had presentations. You know, there are times when if we have short agendas, you know, perhaps it would work. But yeah, if you're here till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, your judgment is not as good as it was, and we're more interested in getting out the door.
Anyone else? Ms. Terminelli.
I guess I would just say that the first 3 years this past year, we've had one committee meeting per Monday. The 3 years prior to that, we did have the combined meetings, and I at no time felt that I didn't give 100% of myself, regardless of the time. Just the opposite, when we did have the combined meetings, as opposed to now, you're saving on mileage by having those combined meetings. And I do see that there are some in the second draft. There are some meetings where we've got like a Memorial Day or Labor Day where there's another Monday. I mean, could there be an option to, in those months, not have combined? So there's just one open Monday per month. And it's about.
Anyone else? So like for you have your mic on, you're all done. Mrs. Haggard, Mrs. Doyle would like to clarify something.
I just want to clarify that even in draft one, there's still 3 months where we have a holiday, so we're in a situation where we don't have an option. Years ago, I will say that when budget meetings happened on multiple evenings, legislative for a second, I remember this, we would have meetings on Tuesdays, so that's also an option.
Anyone else? So all those in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? With one, Ms. Terminelli and Ms. Sanger. Okay, so now we have the amended, resolution in front of us for the adoption of the rules of procedure. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the amended resolution for adoption of rules of procedure, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, so we'll move on to the next one, which is authorizing the chair to sign contracts. By Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers.
So this resolution comes before you every year. If you recall at services, we had a conversation from a discussion standpoint of the 28 pages that were provided to you on Google Drive with details around all the community services programs that are authorized in their resolutions. So we typically try and do one resolution so that we can always point back to this resolution. The alternative option here is for each line with an account and a dollar amount, you'd have a separate resolution for it. So we really try in standard situations to go ahead and authorize these together. All of the services, I think, because community services has had a lot of conversation about what's available, that is available to you, but those have been incorporated into this resolution.
Okay, any questions, for Mrs. Doyle? Seeing none, all those in favor, Mr. Terminelli. Yeah, good time.
I was just going to say, I don't know if I need to recuse as an employee, an administrative employee in a school district, and they're listed on here. I'm not sure.
Would defer to the county attorney.
Hi, county attorney, can I defer? Sir, may I defer to him?
Sure, oh, yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you that. If we will, under our rule. Function in private path to a fund file. Or on this. Here's my recommendation.
Then I would like to recuse from this vote. Thank you.
Okay, so granted. So all those in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is newspaper designation. Moved by. Forsythe, second by Mr. Reagan.
This resolution comes to you annually, and we have prepared it under the guidance we have utilized this year as to ensure that as much information can get out into the public as possible by naming all of our publications. Johnson encapsulates, most of you I think are aware, most of the local newspapers around the county. Provider.
Is anyone interested in the cost? There was an increase.
I can share that.
Okay. All those in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for the county administrator's office for costs associated with court-ordered treatment services at community state operated inpatient mental hygiene facilities. Moved by Ms. Curran. Second by Forsythe and Mrs. Sager.
Thank you. This resolution, as it captures in the whereas, the extraordinary expense that we have incurred since the regulation changed associated with cost sharing with New York State. I believe this is the third resolution you'll be approving, if you do this year, to provide us for the last 3 months of the year to make payment. We have seen a decrease in our overall individuals who are placed. And so that has had an impact. We've come down from over $300,000 and $400,000 bills into the 70,000. So certainly continue to push legislatively for reform on this matter. But in order that we be able to pay our bills, we felt strongly, as we've seen these increases since 2020, that we should not have these appropriations sitting in a budget line, that a conversation on the floor every time we go over budget is necessary to emphasize the importance of this cost share. However, understanding the situation we're in, and it has been added to our legislative agenda, we did take in, with respect to who we know will be with us for the foreseeable future, we took our budget line from 175,000 up to 1.374 million, an increase of 1.19. So we will continue to fight for changes to the reform of this regulation. Again, it's not a law. And if we are able to, that is certainly funds that we could recapture for contingency in 2023. So I wanted to make you aware of that as well.
Any questions for Mrs. Doyle? Mrs. Curran?
I just want to say to the people at home that are listening to this, when people are treated, if they're treated under the New York State mental health, legal hygiene services laws set forth by the state, therefore the payment of this treatment should be paid for by the state and not an unfunded mandate to the county.
Here. Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Kevin? Yeah,
Sorry, Mr. Clinton, yes.
with regard to this, Ruth, I think that this would be one of those things that we would want to see on our list of things to discuss with our legislators when we make our annual trip.
Okay, we'll move on to the next resolution, and that's modifying the 2022 budget of the assigned council program. Moved by Mr. Forsyth, second by Ms. Curran.
This resolution comes to you. We spent quite a bit of time in years past talking about the cost of assigned counsel. The problem's a little bit different as of late, and that is with a reduced number of attorneys available to take cases, we end up paying a greater amount for folks to travel here to provide representation. So the costs you're seeing associated with assigned counsel require us to transfer 110,000. And I can't tell you necessarily that you won't see us back in January, depending on the bills that come in as the year wraps up. Traditionally, we pay these bills after the case is completed. So sometimes when they drag on for a period of time, we don't see those bills for a year, 2 years, sometimes 10 years, depending on the case. So with that information that we have, I do want to let you know that in moving forward, we have adjusted the budget for 2023 by adding another 40,000 to the amount that was already provided. And the actuals at this time are 1.1 million. So we're looking close to 1.165 to finish the year. An expensive endeavor, certainly something that, much like the issue we just talked about, we'd like to address with the state.
Okay, Mr. Smithers.
Just to clarify, the numbers, you've got 90 and 20 would be 110 to decrease, and then to increase, you've got 110 and 20. Is that correct?
So the way that this resolution is handling the budget modification, it's taking salary funds from our vacant positions in the first decrease appropriations of 90. It is then moving 20,000 from fund balance, which requires 2 transactions to occur. We have to move it from the location of appropriations we are not permitted to use to appropriations in fund balance we are available to use. So that's the 20,000 twice that you see. That's actually one transaction to bring that into our budget, and then the increase in appropriations allow us to spend it. So we're using in the first line what you've already approved, just for a different purpose, and we're taking the 20,000 from our fund balance to pay the difference.
It's the language of municipal accounting.
We have to get permission to use fund balance. We can't just go in and use it anytime we like.
Okay, any other questions concerning the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, I have a couple of updates for you. Wanted just to mention, as the last meeting of 2022, but more importantly, the last meeting of this board, I want to thank you for your good guidance, comprehensive approach to the operations of county government, and governing during a pandemic 1 year into this term should not be understated. Continuing to nurture the fiscal health while decreasing taxes, tackling challenges in social services, and supporting the changes necessary, which got expensive, to make those improvements are all parts of the legacy of this term. And I want you to be very proud of that. We as a staff are very grateful for your guidance, and we look forward for those staying with us to working with you next term, and those departing that you'll come back and see us. Wanted to let you know, as a follow-up to last week's discussion with community services, we already held 2 meetings associated with our revenue issue. That's a twofold. One is we have the OTP open and running, and 2, we brought on a new EHR, which is electronic health record, that we're not seeing the funds come in that have been billed. So on Tuesday, we met with the internal staff to talk about the department level issues, and on Friday, we met with the vendor. So that's going to continue to occur every Tuesday and Friday and more if needed until it's resolved. So we put back some questions to them, trying to understand where the issues lie so that we can bring those to you so that you can understand what's happening. I think that part of the concern is always that 90-day window we're familiar with what we may lose associated with Medicaid and in some cases Medicare reimbursement. And I'm told that this time, at least they've been billed, and so we may not be in jeopardy because we're debating the bill. It is if those services have occurred and we haven't submitted a bill for those services, that we may be at a detriment and ultimately a loss. So I'll keep you posted, but we are attacking this challenge with the EHR that, we all wanted to move away from where we were to a better place, and we are not there yet. But I will keep you posted as we move through this. Last week, the healthcare committee met with our benefits consultants to go over the responses to the pharmacy contract and services to be provided. We had some questions and had some information we're still waiting for that they're going to get for us. But I expect in the next 30 to 60 days, we'd like to convene that larger group that we held meetings with the unions to be inclusive of the union's information so that we can get all of that out there before we sign the next contract. So that will come before you, but also certainly no one's excluded from hearing that presentation where it comes, I hope in the next 30 to 60 days. Internally encouraged by the numbers that have come back and the creative approach that our consultant is taking to try and address some of the rebate opportunities and challenges we have. And then lastly, two more things. By the end of this month, I want to let you know we will be submitting our plan, our threat assessment plan under Executive Order 18. Counties are required by the end of the year to submit a plan. The Sheriff's Office has taken lead on this and is doing an exemplary job pulling together all of the players. It includes school districts, it includes mental health professionals, and the intelligence side with law enforcement to bring together a plan to address. We've approved funds, not at December's meeting, but in November, to bring in a consultant for them to allow them to pull together this plan that we can submit to the state. So we'll share that with you when it's prepared, but I wanted you to know that we'll need that requirement. And then lastly, I am putting together the orientation schedule for our new legislators. And I'm never above saying that I haven't done it as well as I thought we could. And so we continue to try to improve and evolve. And what I think I'm hopeful to do this next time through is to allow a time period from 5 o'clock to 5:30 before your committee meetings until we get through all the departments and truly have them give you a 10-minute summary of their operations. We'll invite the new legislators to come in, but any and all of the legislators that are sitting are welcome to attend. What I will then also ask departments to do, and I've shared this with them, is to make a recording of a more detailed approach to their programs so that when resolutions come up or when you have time, you can sit down and go through and watch the narrative and the information that they can provide. So that tentatively is our approach that will let you know, kind of the arena they work in, the staff that they have, the basics that the budget provides, but also that legislators can become familiar with who's running our departments. So we'll put that schedule together and share that with you very soon. Okay, I'm going to have one more thing. If I could ask Kelly Bigworth to come up, please. Step away from your minutes. Step away from your minutes. So I wanted to take a minute and recognize one of the county's very finest. As we close the year, this meeting is the last scheduled for this term of the board. And these are held during a very sentimental time of year. Before we close this term, I'd like to take a moment to honor one of our steadfast staff who make sure we all make it to and through important occasions like the one we just held at the December board meeting. It may be tradition, or they may be my latest, greatest effort to show our employees how much we care about them and that we want to celebrate their good work. But one person is always right by my side as my cheerleader, my confidant, and truly the light of the board office. For months, I've been thinking about the right way to celebrate a milestone in her life. This has been a big one for her. Marrying the love of her life, giving true love a chance, and of course, more importantly, reaching, in my humble opinion, reaching her 20th year of county service. Kelly Sue Bigworth came to work for the county in 2002 at the Highway Department. After 5 years and 2 promotions, she moved to the purchasing office, She helped out in social services before another promotion in a 2009 transfer to the district attorney's office as a secretary one. She's had an opportunity to work with a number of talented county staff. She found her home in the board office in September of 2011. And we were fortunate enough to have her accept the coveted position of deputy clerk to the legislators. She came to work under the previous administrator and dear friend Karen St. Hilaire, who had the great foresight to hire Kelly after I told her this hire was a must to complete her administration. Karen shares these words in reflecting on working with Kelly. When staffing the board office, which is central to county operations, it is critical to have the people who understand the mission, who have the ability to be the welcoming face that says, we are here to serve you. Kelly was and is perfect with her knowledge of each department, friendly personality, and desire to solve problems. In reflecting on her legacy, Karen considers the hiring of the extremely professional and competent Kelly Bigward and promoting the current administrator and myself as two of her greatest achievements. From day one, Kelly has been sunshine to our office, even on those toughest of days, and we've definitely seen some of those. I recognize as we reach these milestones with employees, they will be fewer and farther between. You just heard last month about two of our 35-year employees who were present and others who were not, but also noted to have reached significant milestones in their careers with St. Lawrence County. I cannot emphasize enough the value of employees like Kelly who are influential with new employees, take great care of existing employees, and really live up to what public service is and is supposed to be. I knew once Kelly was up to speed in her role as deputy clerk, she would exceed all expectations, and she's done just that. Most recently, she's also taken on records management officer for the county and is tackling our proceedings as well as records retention and a number of other projects that I couldn't do without her help. One fun fact about our deputy clerk, you may not know, is she's not a great fan of people being dressed up. And one day, unbeknownst to a visitor to our office, a person came in fully dressed up and may have even jump scared her with his arrival. She was beyond mortified, but maintained her composure like she always does and handled herself with grace like she always does. But we learned from that day it was not a good idea to have a costume or a mask in her presence. What we also learned about this deputy clerk was she could not be fazed. She would not falter in the face of challenge or adversity. She could carry out the work of the office with class and with grace. And most importantly, because she loves the company she works for. We know she's been tested with plenty of frustrated caller, or even being in a situation where she had to lend her voice to criticisms of her husband. Never would you know that she had any feeling on it. She carried it out with class and with grace. Kelly Sue Bigwar represents the best qualities in St. Lawrence County staff, and I would like to thank her for 20 years of service with the county. We are grateful for you. Thank you for the announcement.
What a setup. All right, well, congratulations. I think the board members would echo how helpful you are. And I've asked the new members coming in, this is a resource. It's a resource and use it. She knows that whether Bruce having a good day or bad. So, all right. All right, let's move on to our committee reports. And first up, the Cornell Cooperative Extension Board, Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chair, the Cornell Cooperative Extension Board, Wednesday, December 13th. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend. But some of the highlights of the meeting, this 2023 is a $3.4 million budget. It represents an $8.41 match to every dollar that's provided by the county government. That's obviously a significant return on investment. That's up from $2.25 in 2012. And the other bright spot was the Cornell Cooperative Extension has been granted they are awarded the third consecutive ag in classroom. a very promotion program for 20. They're doing some good for us.
Good addition. Good work. Fish and Wildlife Management Board for Region 6, Ms. Curran.
December 15th, we had our last meeting. We struggled quite a bit with the webcom system getting in and being able to see people or talk to people. A few of the amendments that might matter is the amendments to the turkey hunting season on Long Island. They decreased the minimum shot size that you can use. You can go after little buggers with a number 9 now if you have to. They amended the Fisher Martin trapping regulations to remove the requirement for trappers to submit the martin carcasses while maintaining a requirement to have the special martin permit, not to have to retain the carcass to show. And then they clarified the determination of the jurisdiction under the endangered and threatened fish and wildlife regulations. There is a whole list that when the meeting minutes come out, I will put up because it's just easier to go down the list and see what is new and endangered. And of course, my favorite thing that we talk about, the amendments to the New York State mink, muskrat, and beaver trapping season dates. They're gonna shorten up. The beaver are gonna get more protection now from ever from having somebody trap them and take them out of their habitat. So look forward to additional water flowing over your roads.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Curran. Fisheries Advisory Board, Ms. Terminelli.
We meet bi-monthly and our November meeting was canceled, so we will be meeting at the end of January.
Okay, thank you. Governor Fair Board, Mr. Smithers.
Nothing new to report at this time.
Okay, so how about the Highway Solid Waste Committee, Mr.
Also, nothing there new to report. Don Chambers keeps a pretty good job of
Okay.
keeping us abreast of issues.
The Industrial Development Agency, Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we covered everything in Patrick's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Recreational Trails Advisory Board, Mr. Perkins.
Snowmobilers have been singing, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. They got their wish and possibly again this weekend. So snowmobile season will be on way.
Okay, thank you. St. Lawrence River Valley Redevelopment Agency, Mr. Forsythe.
No, nothing to report. We haven't had a meeting.
What? How's the RDA?
Oh, we've been, I knew you were gonna say it. We closed the case, if you don't mind me adding this, we closed the following loans. Riverside Iron, Potsdam Specialty Paper, Connexus, 941 Acco Way. A bunch of community development, and environmental improvement program. Out of it. And we haven't.
Okay. So Margaret, Mr. Kelly has cut into your time for St. Lawrence County Chamber, but if you could briefly your assessment.
Mr. Akers, I was just gonna say, in honor of this being your last meeting, I have prepared quite a lengthy report. I know you love to hear me talk.
Let's see.
Yeah, okay. We met on 12/8 at the Best Western in person, and at that time, we went over all the audited financial reports and the 2023 budget. There are a couple big things coming up, one of which I thought you'd be interested in, Kevin, a sing-along and photo op opportunity with Elsa and Olaf from Frozen. Okay, it's a special guest actors in costume playing these roles and leading families in fun Frozen song sing-alongs. Kids are encouraged to come, but I think they'd let you in. That's on Sunday, the 8th from 12 to 3 at the North Country Children's Museum in beautiful downtown Potsdam. Furthermore, the website for the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce has the list for all the FISU games that are coming up. I had the pleasure of attending I don't know if I reported on this, but I just want to keep this going. So the moose came up and the torch was delivered at Clarkson, and we had several of us there. And it was also first responders night, and we had a wonderful turnout for the game against Brown University. And that's all I got. I'm sorry.
Thank you for being so brief and to the point. I love it.
Certainly.
Thank you. So Ruth is gonna add on.
Well, this is sort of a duplicative. Highway has been asked by the state, who is working to host these games, to make sure, I know the state's deploying additional resources for snow removal, to make sure while there will be an incredible amount of transport between Canton, Potsdam and Lake Placid, our highway forces will be making sure county routes are clear, working with the state to ensure safe travel in all ways that we can control.
Thank you very much. Under old and new business, there is a resolution that was tabled, and that resolution was approval of payment in lieu of taxes agreement in relation to a solar project on parcel 40.004-2-20.22, located at 50 Cogswell Corners Road in the town of Madrid, New York. Is there a motion to remove from the table? Motion by Mrs. Haggard. Is there a second? There is not a second. Is there any other old or new business? Mrs. Curran, Ms. Curran, I'm sorry.
As you know, this is your last board meeting that you will be at. And I regret in October not celebrating National Kevin's Day, because I've learned a lot from you, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. And I thank you for all of your advice and just being a good colleague. And I will miss you a little bit, and I will miss not being called Mrs. Akers once in a while.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to thank you for your service to this board. Obviously, you and I have had some differences over the years, but I have to commend you. You've been a consummate professional. You've been a great chairman of this finance committee. You've been a great legislator. You have been a strong advocate for the taxpayers of this county for many, many years. And even though you and I have had some disagreements and some issues, I just want to tell you that your service to the county has been important. And I think that, you know, the recent tax cut is part and parcel of your efforts and your undying efforts over your term as a county legislator. So speaking just on my own behalf, thank you for your service. And I think my thoughts are shared by many people in this room.
Thank you, Dave.
I got the certificate I want to put, no, I don't. I'll add to it. We've had our good days, we've had our bad days, but we're all adults in the room, and I think we'll be friends forever. So I appreciate all you've done. 12 years is a long time to sit on this board. We miss a lot of family events, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dave. Don't make me come back here. Mr. Lightfoot.
You know, maybe I've been wrong when I've said this, but I've said it to many, many people. That I think Kevin Akers is the smartest guy in the room. And I truly believe it. I will miss you. Thank you.
Larry.
Kevin, it's been, obviously, I knew you before on the board of legislators. A lot of respect for you. There were times that you and I didn't see eye to eye. But that's mostly less than how much respect for you, and we're gonna miss you, buddy.
Just as long as you guys knew I was right. Comrade Martin.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Akers. It's not easy to represent people, and certainly not in some of the situations that were faced by this board prior to long before my tenure. But I do want to point out that I've known you longer than everybody in this room. We met in '02 when I started at Medford Wilmington Central School, so we're old friends and I'd like to keep. By the way, we have disagreed on just about everything, but that's okay. That's what it's all about.
You're just an easy target, Margaret. Well, thank you, everyone. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you, Kelly. It's fun, everyone. And you know, as you heard my pronunciation of Rodney's name, I'm really good at accents. It's coming to me.
Carson, she was.
The exception.
Showcase of your talent.
Well, thank you, everyone. Do we have a need for executive session?
We do.
Okay.
For negotiation, litigation, personnel, for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And we have 4 appointments.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers. All those, and the new legislative stay. So you're gonna have to sit out there. So all those in favor of going. Okay, so we're back in regular session. Ruth would like to make a comment about NISAC.
Yes, just one announcement, certainly for our new legislators, and any interested in attending, it's going to be March 26th. Or I apologize, February 26th through March 1st. And that will take place in Albany. So if you're interested, let us know you would like to go and we can get permission to attend. Prepared for you, accommodations will be reserved ahead of time, so everyone who'd like to go will be at the same hotel where the conference is located. Thank you.
Right?
That's it. So a motion to adjourn was made by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Smithers. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed. Thank you.